Hello, hello, hello. Top of the morning, evening, afternoon, and good night to one and all. It is, what day is it? It is Thursday, July 11th. Oh, I want to have a fun topic with you guys today. Kind of dual streaming just because I wanted to put this on two different platforms. So I wouldn't say that I'm covering this extensively, watching the full recap, but yeah, today we're going to be talking about a little show, a movie, director, on the producer, on the set, um, shooting one of the people that are actually on the
Sometimes I sprinkle when I
yeah, I was
tinkle.
waiting for that on the cameras. So everybody familiar? Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Vaughn. Thank you, Nick. Everybody familiar with the whole Russ situation? Sure, everybody's familiar with it. Basically, Alec Baldwin's on set. He's directing a movie, also acting in it. Apparently, he is a terrible person to work with. I think it's funny that it takes, I don't know about funny, I think it's ironic that it takes something like this in order for it to come out of how bad of an individual he is to work with. But essentially, he's holding a pistol. He's in a scene in a church or like a barn, like an old rustic building. Thank you, Monkey. So essentially, he's behind the camera. While he's in front of the camera, he's acting. He pulls out his sidearm, and then the sidearm goes off. At first, he says, "I didn't do it. I didn't pull the trigger. It just accidentally went off." And then he went on to say that it did go off and that there should have been blanks in there. And then he didn't pull the trigger. So it's been back and forth for a good while. And now that they're in court, well, it's tough, man. I'm going to show you guys a clip. I think it's pretty crazy, but the way that I take it from having so much firearm training, being in the military, having to carry a 9mm at all times with me, and the same thing with an M4 or an M16. Whenever a weapon is put into your hand, you should know how to operate it, regardless of whatever is your position. If someone puts a firearm in your hand, you should know what you are doing. And the big argument that people are going to say is he is an actor. He shouldn't have to know. Yes, you should. It is a prop gun. You shouldn't need to know. All the more reason to know. So there's a lot of any argument that you pose. I'm going to use the counter argument and say, if I gave you a fake bat, okay, to act in a movie and hit somebody with a fake bat, you would probably want to know how to swing a bat properly. Yes? If you've never worn clothes before and all of a sudden I found you on an island somewhere and I think that you're going to be a great actor. The problem is I can't put you on the silver screen unless you know how to wear clothes. So that means that somewhere along the line, someone's got to be able to teach you how to put a t-shirt on, or someone's got to tell you how to put pants on. If you have never held a firearm before, and this guy has acted in a lot of movies. I am not a big fan of Alec Baldwin, but I'm not going to let my biasness affect my judgment or cloud my judgment at all. But I feel that if you are going to use something or utilize something, you should probably know how that would work in real life. I mean, you have to play the part, yeah? I mean, I'm not an actor, although I do some really great improv, but I'm not an actor, okay? So before you just jump down my back and you say, well, you know what? Hold on now. This is an actor. He doesn't need to know. Now, fast forward to what happened. Now people are saying, well, I honestly, I don't know anybody that's saying that he's not guilty. You'd have to be a monkey to argue this. You could use the argument and say that the round that was put inside of there should have been checked better. Yes? Agree. You could use the argument and say that the gun was faulty. We're going to watch something about that. And I hate calling it a gun because it's not a gun per se. It's a pistol. A gun is something that belongs on a ship that shoots, 150 millimeter howitzers or tomahawks. Well, that's a missile. But you get the point. Anyway, so you're gonna hear an argument about the whole pistol going off. Whether or not other people are responsible, I think it comes ultimately down to the individual that is behind the trigger. It is quite literally that simple. There have been times, and I don't want to get too far off track, but there's been times on a military installation. Now, I don't know what I'm at liberty to speak about and what I'm not at liberty to speak about, but I will say this. I've seen it where military personnel, I'll leave it there, accidentally fired rounds downrange or uprange. I've seen it where soldiers don't know how to fire weapons, and what happens? I've seen even drills. I've seen people get injured, not die. But that's because they were untrained and inexperienced. They didn't go to jail because this is the first time them holding a rifle. And obviously, they're just not being taught properly. So let's just keep that in consideration. That's what I'm going to use as an argument to defend him, is that he doesn't know how to properly hold a weapon. I have a lot of problems with that argument, but that's the one I'm going to give him. I'll also give him the benefit of the doubt and say he didn't pull the trigger. But we're going to watch this real quick, and we're gonna kind of see what this is about. So let's just go on and get this.
It perforated her right lung. It traveled through her spine, lacerating her spinal cord, and then it exited on the left side of her back. That bullet then went into Joel Souza's right shoulder, and it came to rest in his back, from where doctors removed it once he was transported to St. Vincent's Hospital here in Santa Fe. You will learn, ladies and gentlemen, that Ms. Hutchins did not have the same fate.
I never understood that. Why actors do this. I got a whole nother set of opinions. I never understood why people that are on trial write notes. You don't think that your lawyer has already got this in the bag? Okay, all right, I'm going to not interrupt. Let's just go.
You will see the aftermath of the shooting, and you will see medics frantically working to save Ms. Hutchins, to stabilize her, to transport her, to airlift her to UNM Hospital. But the damage from that bullet was too much. Ms. Hutchins succumbed to her injuries and bled to death. The evidence will show that meanwhile, after the shooting, the defendant began to claim he didn't pull the trigger. The evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that's not possible. You will hear from Mr. Pieta himself, who will tell you that gun will not discharge without a pull of the trigger. You will hear from firearms experts who will tell you that gun will not discharge without a pull of that trigger. The evidence will show that law enforcement officials arrived at the scene on October 21st after the shooting and immediately took this gun into their custody. Then later, they asked the FBI for assistance in processing this gun for forensics and examination. You will learn that the gun and some ammunition that was taken from the set and from PDQ arms were sent to the FBI for analysis. You will learn that the gun first went to the DNA section of the lab, where a DNA analyst found the defendant's DNA on this gun. And then the gun was transferred to the firearms and tool mark section of the lab, where a firearms examiner examined this gun very carefully and closely. Bryce Ziegler, who is the firearms examiner for the FBI, will tell you that when he received this firearm, he first examined it. He didn't see any defects, didn't see any modifications. He tried and he checked the hammer in the 3 different positions, cocking positions. He checked the quarter cock position, fine. Checked the half cock position, fine. Checked the full cock position, fine. And when he held it in the full cock position, you will hear that hammer held until he pulled the trigger. You will also hear that Mr. Ziegler test fired this gun 12 different times. And each time that gun fired, as it was designed. Each time when he pulled that trigger, it fired. And he will tell you that not once did this gun malfunction or discharge on its own. Now, the evidence will show that because the defendant had been claiming that he didn't pull the trigger,
just point out how old his brother in the background looks. Stephen Baldwin? Oh my goodness. Bro, I remember him from Biodome. He looks like he biodegraded. Jiminy cricket. You look worse than your older brother. Oh, God.
Mr. Ziegler suggested one last test to the Sheriff's Department. Mr. Ziegler told the Sheriff's Department that he could do what's called an accidental discharge test. He obtained authorization to do this test, and you will hear that he left that test for last because that test could potentially damage the gun. Mr. Ziegler went forward after he received this authorization and conducted the accidental discharge test. And you will hear, ladies and gentlemen, that during that test, a couple of the internal components of this firearm damaged. You will hear that the trigger sear and the full cock hammer notch were damaged during the accidental discharge testing. The evidence will show, however, that before this accidental discharge testing by the FBI, this gun functioned and worked perfectly fine. You'll see the video footage of the multiple occasions during which the defendant...
Where's my ex-military at? Doesn't it bother you just a little bit when people call a pistol a gun? Like, doesn't that bother you at all? No? It bothers me so much. I guess because it was ingrained, man, in basic training that it's not a gun. Stop calling it a gun. It's a rifle. It's a pistol. It's not a gun. But I get it. It's a broad spectrum. It's not, though. A gun belongs on a ship. It belongs on wheels. It's not a... Okay, I am letting that bother me way too much.
Used this firearm on the set, and each time he fired it, it was working just fine. And in fact, you'll hear evidence that the defendant himself admitted in December of 2021 that this gun didn't have any mechanical problems. You will hear from the two of the country's leading experts on firearms forensics, Michael Haig and Lucian Haig. And they will tell you that they examined the revolver and the damaged pieces extensively. They will tell you that the damage to the full cock trigger notch is consistent with the accidental discharge testing that was conducted.
That is some minuscule damage. I'm just going to put that out there. It is minuscule. It is damaged.
By the FBI. Lucian.
But that's after the drop test, right? Or that's after the accidental discharge test. I hope they show you what the accidental discharge test is. We had to do this on rifles at the armory in Fort Jackson.
Haig will tell you that in August of 2023, he examined the trigger sear, the other piece, and that when he looked at it initially with the naked eye, there was nothing wrong with it. He couldn't see anything. But then he put it under the microscope, and he noticed some kind of rough microscopic diagonal lines on the surface of the trigger sear. And since at the time he did not know how Mr. Ziegler had conducted the accidental discharge test, he opined that these very small microscopic lines were likely not caused by the FBI accidental discharge testing, but he could not exclude that as the source of those lines. Then a few weeks ago, Mr. Haig will tell you that he spoke with Mr. Ziegler, and he learned how Mr. Ziegler had conducted the accidental discharge test. Mr. Ziegler explained that he affixed that firearm onto a fixed platform.
There you go.
And then struck the firearm on 6 different planes with a rubber mallet. And Mr. Ziegler explained to Mr. Haig that He had not affixed the mallet to another fixed device. Instead, he did it freehand.
Ooh.
Mr. Haig will tell you, with his 50-plus years of experience as a firearms forensics expert, he opined or concluded that those very tiny microscopic diagonal lines on the surface of the trigger sear were likely caused by the FBI's accidental discharge test.
Huh.
The evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that regardless of how those tiny microscopic lines got on that trigger sear, these firearms experts will tell you that those would not affect the functionality of this firearm. At the end of this case, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to conclude and be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that on October 21st, 2021, that gun the defendant had asked to be assigned worked perfectly fine as it was designed, and that the fatal and one of the main problems that afternoon of October 21st was that the defendant didn't do a gun safety check with that inexperienced armorer. He pointed the gun at another human being, cocked the hammer, and pulled that trigger in reckless disregard for Ms. Hutchins' safety. And you will be convinced that the only true and just verdict in this case, so that true justice can be served, is a verdict of guilty to involuntary manslaughter. Thank you.
Okay, so let me. There's a lot I want to talk about. There's a lot I want to cover here. I just want to point this out. If anybody else, now this is difficult, right? Because none of us are going to be put in this position because you're not an actor. I just want to point out that when an actor does something that a normal Joe would do, first off, you don't have the money, right? You might get a great criminal lawyer. You might get, grants, whatever. You might have people in your family help you out, but you're never going to be treated the same as what a celebrity does. Celebrity is. I mean, look at O.J. Simpson's trial. The fact of the matter is, he was not guilty. It's that simple. Thank you, Joker. Thank you so much, brother. So when you look at this case with him, there is so much that I want to talk about. First off, you hear her talking a lot. Let me do this linear. I guess now he's saying that he did not pull the trigger. Okay. I don't know about anybody else. So in the military, not so much when you are carrying your sidearm as an MP, or when you got to the range for your testing, or whatever the case may be, you don't really do accidental discharge test. That's all done by the Armory. What you're supposed to do is make sure the weapon is clear, make sure your safety's on. There's a lot of different weapon checks you have to do prior to you, first off, taking that weapon and then going down range with weapon. Even when you're in combat or in theater or on a sand, there are certain prerequisites that you are responsible to do. And it should be the same way, whether you are an actor, whether you are buying a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun, any type of weaponry. You should have some type of experience handling this. And especially if you are a celebrity, because, well, you've seen The Crow, right? Everybody here has seen The Crow. If you have not, I'm about ready to spoil it for you. Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, got shot with it wasn't a bullet, right? There was some stuff inside of the chamber, right? Or was it in the muzzle? I don't remember. There was something somewhere in the pistol, that a projectile, if you will, that went out and killed Brandon Lee. That's odd, You would think, though, at this point in time, with all the technology that we have, you could give them a weapon that looks damn near identical. Same materials, everything. You just take out the hammer. I don't understand what's happening. Like, maybe I'm just not getting it. They even have blanks that go off like electronically with a false hammer. So like a hammer that moves, but it doesn't have a firing pin on it. What are we doing? Okay, that's not the problem though. I guess the problem is, let's focus. So he should have the experience. And I don't want to hear it's the armorer's fault. I don't want to hear, I'm not saying that they're not responsible, but what it really comes down to is who pulled the trigger. Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger. Regardless of whatever happened to the armory, whatever happened to the bullets, whatever happened inside of there, especially with a revolver, pull your chamber out, pull your cylinder out, inspect the rounds, pull the rounds out. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, then we're going to need somebody, we're going to need a stunt double that does know what he's doing to do what you're supposed to do. Okay, because you pull out your cylinder, look at the rounds. Wow, those rounds, this is suspect. Let me put that one aside. Close it. We're done. Okay, let's rock and roll. And I get it. You got to point, the pistol at people or the gun at people because it's part of the script. I get all that. I do. And I do think accidents do happen. But I don't think any accident with any pistol or rifle or shotgun should ever happen. If you are trained properly and you know what you're doing, I don't care if there are real rounds in there. That's on you, man. And the sad thing is no matter what happens here, I'm just going to go ahead and predict this. I'm sure we're going to be covering this a lot. But no matter what happens here, I guarantee you Alec Baldwin does not go to jail. Nope. Might get probation, might get house arrest, if he ends up going to jail, it'll be for like 30 days or something. I doubt he's going to go to jail because he's got a lot of money. And no matter how you cut the cake, whether you pulled the trigger or not, it does not matter. That pistol was in your possession when that round traveled through that chamber and struck that female and that other male. You were the person behind it. However it went off, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. I just foresee the future as they're going to go on and on and on and on about this. And we're going to cover this probably every morning until it's over because I'm interested as to what happens. I don't care about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I don't care about all that. I honestly don't care about this at all. I just think I just want to see how well the Justice Department is in regards to being unbiased. I want to see that. And I just think it's fascinating that you don't want to take any type of responsibility for what you've done. It's good. So the accidental discharge, Bree had asked earlier. So there's a couple ways of doing it. They would do things as far as put like a flash suppressant on the top. You could put a round in the chamber and you would drop it. And then you'd be behind like a C20 plexiglass. You could do it where you kind of jostle it about or you bang it. You just don't hold it by the flash guard or the muzzle because then the round will go right through you. But there are multiple ways of testing it. They explain how they did their test, the hammer. They're going to come up with all these different reasons as to why the round went off and that but you're going to see, whether or not who's responsible for it. Let me check something real quick. I want to see something.
Did you take that photograph?
Yes, I did.
And why did you take that photograph?
This photograph is of the prop truck that was at our initial scene.
Did you say, is this a truck?
Or, I apologize, a prop cart at our initial scene.
Do you know what a prop cart is used for on the movie set?
My understanding was that it was a cart that had some props on it.
Do you know whether or not those props included real guns?
I do not.
Still today, you don't know?
The firearms that are visible on this, one is a plastic gun and the other is a firearm that has a blocked cylinder. So it's not a loadable gun. So they're not usable firearms.
Understood. Can you, if you recall, did you collect real firearms from the set of Rust?
Yes.
How many real firearms did you collect from the set of Rust?
There was one firearm that was taken on the initial scene.
But when you continued your searching, when you indicated you searched the prop truck, is that right?
Yes.
So let me back up. The initial real firearm that you took, where was it when you first saw it? And do we have number 6? What happened to the item of evidence? He's got it.
What's he doing with his lips?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Pointing? What's wrong with his lips? Long kisses?
Ms. Popple, this is State's Exhibit 6, and it has previously been admitted into evidence. So if you would open it. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is that?
This is the firearm that was taken out of Lieutenant Benavidez's vehicle.
And what did you do with it?
I photographed this item and then collected it, took it back to my office where it was photographed in more detail.
And then what did you do with it?
It was submitted to the FBI for analysis.
And why did you submit it to the FBI for analysis? What kind of analysis?
I believe that we were requesting DNA, latent prints, and firearms testing on it.
DNA, you said latent prints?
Yes.
For those folks that aren't involved in law enforcement, what does latent prints mean?
So your fingerprints leave behind oils and waters on surfaces, which are then referred to as latent, meaning invisible. So we have your fingers leaving behind invisible fingerprints.
And what was the other analysis that you asked the FBI?
The firearms functioning test.
And why would you ask the FBI to perform a firearms functioning test?
We wanted to make sure that the firearm was in proper working order.
From the time that you collected that from Lieutenant Benavidez's patrol unit to the time that it was sent to the FBI, where was it kept?
It was first secured in my office and then submitted into our evidence vault.
And when you say vault, does that mean that it's secure?
Yes.
And how long was it kept in the vault before it was sent to the FBI, if you recall?
I don't recall exactly. I would say it was within that week that it was sent out.
And when we send items of evidence to the FBI, how do you do that? Do you just throw them in a box and put them in the mail?
No. A formal request was made to the FBI lab, and then they had an agent respond and take custody of the items.
Who was that agent?
I believe that was Agent Cortez.
So does Agent Cortez come to the Sheriff's Department and take the items?
Yes.
Okay. And then at some point, do you get the items back?
The breather.
Yes.
And do you recall when you...
Could somebody get that person an inhaler or something? Somebody has got a breath problem. Like there is, we got to figure this out ASAP. Let's pause the trial for a minute. Let's figure out, does somebody need some mouth-to-mouth? Jiminy Cricket, y'all need to breathe, bro. Let's figure this out.
You got these items back?
I do not.
Okay. Were they away from the Sheriff's Department and at the FBI for a considerable amount of time?
Yes.
And I apologize, I have been corrected. I thought that State's Exhibit 6 had already been admitted into evidence, but I've been notified that it hasn't been, so I would like to move it into evidence.
I'm pretty sure it has been admitted into evidence. It is,
She didn't move it.
no, she didn't. It's 57813. Yeah. You did not move it in.
Okay. I'd like to go ahead and move it into evidence at this time.
No objection.
All right, State 6 is admitted. You may publish.
When you
Is she okay?
When you sent this firearm to the FBI, did it appear intact?
Yes.
At some point, did you receive it back from the FBI?
Yes.
Had its condition changed?
Yes.
Describe just generally, when you opened the box, what had changed about its condition?
The cylinder of the firearm had been removed and placed separately, and there appears to be an internal component that was bagged in a small plastic bag separate from the firearm.
Okay, and may I approach? I just want to. I haven't actually.
Are we assuming, is it safe to assume? Oh man, this is dangerous territory. Is it safe to assume that you're saying the FBI tampered with the evidence? Is that what we're saying? Because clearly that's what you're saying. But you had them do all the tests, right? The accidental discharge, had them do analysis on it. But what does that have to do with him having the pistol in his hand? I don't know. I guess we'll get there. Okay.
Actually seen what's in the box.
Yes.
So, and I know what conspiracy theorists are going to say is that, and I'm not saying that this isn't possible, but because it's Alec Baldwin with enough of money, somebody somewhere told them to jack something up. But I doubt that very much. I'm sorry. I have more faith in the FBI than that. I just think that that is something that happened, and on an accident, and it is possible in an accidental discharge to destroy parts of a weapon. That does happen. You're putting it through a test, depending on how rigorous of a test you're doing. And I'm speaking firsthand here, not just from watching a show.
I think that maybe what I'd like to do is have it moved to the elbow. Can I move it, or does someone else have to do that?
You want to get the package?
Let's open it and set it right there so that the jury can see what we've been looking at and talking about as best we can. Thank you, sir.
I don't know. I couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear what you said.
I think that maybe what I'd like to do is have it. I think that maybe what I'd like to do is have it moved to the elbow. Can I move it, or does someone else have to do that?
You want to get the package?
Let's open it and set it right there so that the jury can see what we've been looking at and talking about as best we can. Thank you, sir. And just to be clear, this is the same firearm that you collected from Lieutenant Benavidez' patrol unit?
Yes.
And is this generally the condition that it was in when you received it back from the FBI?
Yes.
I see that there's a little plastic bag. Can you tell us what's in that plastic bag?
So there are 3 small metal broken pieces in the plastic bag.
Okay. But other than those broken pieces, was the firearm in generally the same condition?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. And does this stay at the courthouse overnight?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if you can
If you
sit
want
back there
to.
with it or...
Okay.
We leave it here.
Yeah.
We'll secure it.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. I want to go back to State's Exhibit 7 if we can. This cart, did you go through the items that were on it?
Yes.
And did you photograph them?
Yes.
Can you give the jury an idea of what's on that cart? Because it's kind of hard to see everything.
There were multiple boxes of ammunition on the bottom section of the cart, bags, the fake firearms, gun belts with ammunition, earplugs, candy, a fanny pack with ammunition inside, just a multitude of items.
Did that cart, did those items appear to be in any discernible order?
No.
Was there loose ammunition on the cart?
Yes.
And did you collect that?
Yes.
And when you collected that ammunition, did you take it back to the sheriff's office?
Yes.
And what did you do with it when you got it back there?
It was then laid out and photographed.
Now, is this the first time that you've been called to an investigation on a movie set?
Yes.
And have you learned, based on your work on this case, what a dummy round is?
Yes.
Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a dummy round is?
A dummy round is essentially ammunition that is not designed to fire a projectile. It is ammunition that's made distinct by either a hole being drilled through the side of it, so it's obvious that there's no gunpowder inside. The primer has been removed so that it can't be fired, so it makes it obvious that it's a dummy round.
And I'm going to stop you real quick. I want you to explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you mean when you say primer.
The primer is the base of the round, so it's the small circle that the firing pin hits. So since that's removed, there's nothing there for the firing pin to hit and project that projectile. The dummy rounds are also indicated by, if you shake them, they make a rattle sound. Instead of having gunpowder inside, they have ball bearings inside so that you can shake them and know that they're not live ammunition.
So you just kind of went through some of the distinguishing characteristics of dummy rounds. Would a dummy round have all 3 of those distinguishing characteristics?
No, it could have 2 out of the 3, but I haven't run into any that have had all 3.
So approximately how many dummy rounds did you end up taking into evidence?
Specifically that were dummy rounds, I think we have 50. I might be mistaken about that. I apologize. I'm not sure of the exact number of dummy rounds that we have.
And let me just ask you this. You talked about how a round may have a ball bearing in it. Is that right?
Correct.
Would that dummy round that has the ball bearing in it, would that also have a hole in the side?
No, because then the ball bearings would fall out.
Okay. So do the dummy rounds either have a hole in the side or a ball bearing?
Correct.
And based on your work on this case, how would someone know that the dummy round with the ball bearing in it is actually inert?
They would shake it, and it would make a rattle noise.
Okay. And did many of the dummy rounds that you took to the sheriff's department make those noises?
Yes.
Did you also collect any other kind of ammunition from the movie set? Any other types?
Yes.
What other types of ammunition?
It's a type of ammunition that's referred to as a blank.
And can you describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury generally what a blank is?
So a blank is a round of ammunition that has gunpowder in it. However, it does not have a projectile head on the top. So it has a crimped end, kind of like you would see a dumpling have crimps. And that way there's nothing for that gunpowder to project out the barrel of the gun.
And when you collected all of this ammunition, you took it back to the sheriff's department.
Yes.
And at some point, did you examine closely all of the ammunition?
Yes.
And did you develop any suspicions?
Yes.
What suspicions did you develop?
There were several rounds that, when shaken, did not make the rattle noise, and they all had a silver in color primer at the end instead of a brass colored primer.
And did the primer appear to be intact?
Yes.
And did those have a hole in the side?
No.
You indicated that you had some suspicions about them. What was your suspicion?
My suspicion was that they were live rounds.
And what did you do with those live rounds, or suspected live rounds, rather?
Live rounds shouldn't even be on a movie set. Let's just be clear. If you get 1,000 rounds for a movie set, if I was the armorer, I would inspect every single round. I don't care how long it takes. I'm doing it. Nobody else is helping me. I'm going through every single round. I don't know why there was any live round at all in a movie set that you do not need live rounds for. That's all.
They were sent to the FBI for testing to see if they were live rounds or not.
So you didn't take them apart there at the sheriff's department?
No, I did not.
Can you describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a casing is, or a spent casing?
Once a live round is used in a firearm, the casing is what was encasing that round. So in a regular firearm is what would be ejected out of it, out the side. In a case of a revolver, it's what's left in the cylinder. So the projectile has come out of the firearm, and the casing is what's left behind.
Did you collect any spent casings from this scene?
Yes.
How many did you collect from the initial scene?
1.
I'm going to show you what has been, I believe, previously admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 10. Is that a photograph that you took?
Yes.
Let me make it, there we go. And can you tell us what we're looking at?
Yes, this is a close-up image of the top of the cart. There was a spent casing on top of the cart, which is what we see up top here, where it has no projectile head on the end. And then there was another round next to it.
Let me move this. As you sit here today, do you recall whether that round was the one that we're looking at that appears intact? Was that a dummy round or a live round?
That was a dummy round.
Okay.
Interesting. Interesting. So I think in 15 minutes, it starts back up, the full trial. I think in 15 minutes. Hold on. Yeah, I don't think it starts yet. Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, the armor had loaded the pistol, but it is not live right now. Well, it is live. It just hasn't started, and I don't think that I could stream on top of another person streaming. I don't think so. At least not on YouTube. So I guess we'll recap again tomorrow. I just think I'm still gonna go with my initial. I wonder if Alec Baldwin gonna get on the stand. I can promise you that. Got this sunburn coming off my nose. So I guess tomorrow we'll recap and figure out what's what on today's. I'd like to just watch it with you guys, and then give my commentary as we go. But I don't think I could do that on YouTube. Can I stream somebody else's live content? I don't think so. I know I could do it on Twitch. Yeah. Yes, you can stream someone else's live content on YouTube by joining their live stream as a guest. No. I don't think I can. I'd have to do it on Twitch. Okay. So, yeah, we will see tomorrow. I will get some caps, some screen caps, and we will reconvene tomorrow, same time. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. There was some other things I wanted to talk about, but I guess we're just going to have to wait to do that. So, yeah, we will I'll get some. I'll be a little better organized tomorrow. We'll rediscuss this again. Watch maybe a recap of the whole thing. And we'll just go through it together. Yeah? Okay.